On Tuesday night, barely conscious President Joe Biden gave his first State of the Union address. It was full of absolute crappy lies and just some useless plans. We don't know why his administration let him out of the basement to deliver this speech, but we are looking into the issue as we speak. We'll explore all of his speech today on Right Side of the Road. So over the weekend, there was some news about Ukraine, which I will get another video out about soon, but it was a very busy weekend. We actually made it to the finals, and it was another game that I didn't have time to actually make a thing. So anyway, also it's getting really hot in Arizona now. It's like 80 degrees, which seems kind of nice, but then again, yeah, it seems nice, but it feels hot. So yeah, anyway, well, first of all, Biden spent about his first 12 minutes just discussing the situation on Ukraine, which I guess makes sense as it's a pressing issue for some Americans, but it isn't the state of our union. It's called the State of the Union speech. We want to hear the state of the United States. We don't need to play much of this because it's all stuff you've heard before, but really, why is this the first part of your speech? We want to know the state of the Union of the United States. I guess you could have opened with some such dementia nonsense, so it's better than what it could have been. There is one thing I'm glad about from this section of the speech, though, and that's that Biden knows who he's fighting for.
Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people.
Yep, the Iranian people. That's the people that live in Ukraine. And I know it might be confusing because you'd think that it would be the Ukrainian people, and you'd be right to think that. But if you've ever heard of irregular verbs, you'd know that there's this weird rule where irregular verbs don't even apply here. And then right after this, you see Kamala Harris in the background mouth Ukrainian, like with kind of this distressed look on her face, but she doesn't look happy throughout any of this speech. And then we see her tongue leave her mouth for a brief moment in time because it's Kamala, and she has to do something weird at every point in time. Let's move on.
I understand, like many of you did. My dad had to leave his home in Scranton, Pennsylvania to find work. So like many of you, I grew up in a family when the price of food went up, it was felt throughout the family. It had an impact.
And here comes empathetic Joe. We went from barely coherent Joe to barely coherent but slightly empathetic Joe. He understands, guys. He understands. And he's obviously talking about inflation and the economic problems people face due to the lockdowns. He said that before this clip, and here's the problem. All of these things he's talking about are his fault. Inflation is his fault. Lockdowns are his fault. Economic problems are also his fault. So when Biden's dad had to move or whatever, was it because of him that he had to move? All of these things are directly Biden's fault. Or his administration, because I'm not sure he makes most conscious decisions. But it is definitely partially his fault. Anyone in that Biden administration, they were the one who did that. They were the ones who did that. Biden greenlit a lot of this. Also, I'm not sure how he can understand. All he remembers from his childhood, or the past 2 days for that matter, is that Corn Pop is a bad dude, and he's been living a pretty rich life for the past couple of decades due to dealings that his son and Joe Biden himself had in foreign countries like China. He doesn't understand.
And as my dad used to say, it gave the people just a little bit of breathing room. Unlike the $2 trillion tax cut passed in the previous administration that benefited the top 1% of Americans, the American Rescue Plan helped working people and left no one behind.
First of all, what breathing room? You've been shoving people into masks for the past 2 years. Kids take in more carbon dioxide in 3 minutes than they usually get in a whole day. Second of all, the tax cuts under Trump's administration actually did benefit the middle class. The upper class typically paid more taxes under Trump. Under Biden, everyone's going to be paying more taxes. Everyone. None of this fair share nonsense.
Created jobs, lots of jobs. In fact, our economy created over 6.5 million new jobs just last year. More jobs in 1 year than ever before in the history of the United States of America. The economy grew at a rate of 5.7 last year, the strongest growth rate in 40 years.
Okay, first of all, these weren't new jobs per se, that they were created and have never existed before. These are the jobs that were recreated after the pandemic. So during the lockdowns, we lost millions and millions of jobs. And then when the country began to open back up, as it would have without a doddering old fool in charge, actually probably faster without him in charge, we gained jobs back. We would have gotten more jobs back than the, 6.5 million that he talked about, had Biden not been an imbecile and tried to intervene. we lost so many jobs during the lockdown. All of this is just a natural process of reopening our country. It would have opened so much more had it not been for Biden's policies in paying people to stay home.
America used to have the best roads, bridges, and airports on earth. And now our infrastructure is ranked 13th in the world. We won't be able to compete for the jobs of the 21st century if we don't fix it. That's why it was so important to pass the bipartisan infrastructure law.
Okay, no offense here, although I don't care if Biden takes offense from anything, but who cares about roads, man? Except for Right Side of the Road, which you should totally subscribe to now and follow and share with your friends anyway. But really, our infrastructure has nothing to do with jobs in any way, shape, or form. Nothing to do with jobs. Also, with that infrastructure bill, only about 20% of it went to the actual infrastructure. The rest went to keeping some fringe left-wing political actors happy. And also, yeah, China and big communist powers like that are really good at building big structures that nobody lives in. That doesn't help their economy. China doesn't have a great economy. It doesn't help. Roads aren't the main thing that help. I don't know where he's getting this. I don't know if he thinks that driving on roads are the one thing that's preventing people from getting to work. And that's not true, because the one thing that is not preventing but helping people not get back to work is Biden paying people to not be employed.
We'll buy America to make sure everything from the deck of an aircraft carrier to the steel on highway guardrails is made in America from beginning to end. All of it. All of it.
Okay, 1, not going to happen. 2, this is going to bring our costs through the roof. That isn't the solution to labor problems. I don't know why the heck Biden would do this while being faced with an already inflating economy. Thankfully, though, Biden has a truly foolproof plan to fight inflation.
That's why my top priority is getting prices under control. Look, our economy roared back faster than almost anyone predicted. But the pandemic meant that businesses had a hard time hiring enough people because of the pandemic to keep up production in their factories. So you didn't have people making those beams that went into buildings because they were out. The factory was closed. The panic also disrupted the global supply chain. Factories close. When that happens, it takes longer to make goods and get them to the warehouses, to the stores, and prices go up. Look at cars last year. 1/3 of all the inflation was because of automobile sales. There weren't enough semiconductors to make all the cars that people wanted to buy. And guess what? Prices of automobiles went way up, especially used vehicles as well. And so we have a choice. One way to fight inflation is to drive down wages and make Americans poorer. I think I have a better idea to fight inflation. Lower your costs, not your wages. And folks, that means make more cars and semiconductors in America, more infrastructure and innovation in America, more goods moving faster and cheaper in America, more jobs where you can earn a good living in America. Instead of relying on foreign supply chains, let's make it in America.
Okay, bit of a longer clip there, but it's worth it. I hope. It might not have been. I don't want to listen to him anymore. To his first point, wages are a cost. I'm not sure if he knows what the word cost means, or any words mean, because he kind of just strings together syllables and hopes they form coherent sentences. But wages are definitely a cost. A huge corporation spends most of its costs on employees. There's no way to lower said costs without lowering the wages, because the wages are the main cost. So raising the minimum wage, like Biden announced he would do in the State of the Union speech, to $15 will only drive up prices, because it'll drive up costs, which is something the consumer is going to have to pay for. To his second point, in America, Biden clearly did not make his money in America. And that isn't going to lower costs. By driving up the minimum wage in America, it's only going to raise the cost of manufacturing in America. See, I can do it too. I don't know what this trend is, saying in America really fiercely, but I can do it. And this is just plainly untrue. Biden talked about regulating the prices of a ton of different things, such as prescription drugs and Medicare, which will definitely raise taxes to everyone, or it's just going to raise our national debt, which has already hit $30 trillion. His entire plan for everything is just spending more money. I don't know. His solution is So you guys don't have to spend more money on inflation and taxes. I'm just going to spend more money that's going to go into inflation and taxes. Do you see the problem here?
Their profits go up and your prices go up when they don't have to compete. Small businesses and family farmers and ranchers, I need not tell some of my Republican friends from those states. Guess what? You got 4 basic meat packing facilities. That's it. You play with them or you don't get to play at all.
Here Biden is talking yet again about companies he doesn't like because they were mean to him or something, or bullied him as a kid and created some kind of trauma. But I'm not sure if you know how monopolies work, or basic numbers. But 4 is not a monopoly. Monopoly comes from mono, meaning one. Uno. We need to get Dora in here to explain a few of these things. Anyway, when there are 4 companies competing, that isn't a monopoly or one. I don't know how Biden doesn't understand this because he was alive. He was like 20 when the first monopoly was created. So, yeah, I don't know. Wasn't that like 1800?
About half a dozen or less foreign-owned companies raised prices by as much as 1,000% and made record profits. Tonight, I'm announcing a crackdown on those companies overcharging American businesses and consumers.
Okay, even if this were true, we're federally regulating prices now. I see literally zero world in which this goes well. And that's through the entire metaverse that Spider-Man introduced. This isn't even under the authority of the federal government. Also, 1,000%? Again with the numbers, that's 10 times the original price. Where did you get that data? Because that seems absurd, and I'm pretty sure it is untrue. And even if it is, I haven't seen any prices from any company being raised by 10 times. What company raised their prices tenfold? And after this is when Biden suggested raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So he's just saying, yeah, so you see how these prices are getting drastically higher, which I'm pretty sure they're not, but do you see this crazy number? Let's just drive up costs as well. So on top of whatever price got raised, we're raising costs to raise prices again. That seems like a foolproof plan, I think, to lower costs, right?
Tonight I can say we're moving forward safely back to more normal routines. We've reached a new moment in the fight against COVID-19, where severe cases are down to a level not seen since July of last year. Just a few days ago, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention issued a new mask guidelines. Under the new guidelines, most Americans and most of the country can now go mask-free. And based on projections, more of the country will reach a point across the next couple of weeks.
It is a miracle, guys. The guidelines get changed just before you get to speak. If you think for 1 second that I'm going to believe that the science changed at all, let alone right before the State of the Union, you are sadly mistaken, my friend. Here's the thing. Biden's approval ratings are tanking and fast. He needs a bit of a pick-me-up, and here it is. Changing guidelines solely based on politics is his solution. Not any sort of science. If this were based in science, no one would have worn a mask for the past year and a half, because studies are showing that they have for a year and a half that masks are more harmful than helpful to the majority of people. So they probably would have been outlawed for kids and most adults.
We'll once again work in person. Our schools are open. Let's keep it that way. Our kids need to be in school.
Well, that seems like a major shift from the left there. Like, we full on changed 3 years when they spent the past 2 years pushing heavily to shut down schools and then to mask kids who don't need to be masked at all. This is all hypocrisy. It's all hypocrisy. That's all it is. They only shift when they feel it is good for them and not when it's good for the people their stupid policies affect. Before we move further, let's take a look at a fun clip, though. You need some comedic relief.
Most Americans can remove their masks and stay in the classroom and move forward safely.
Again, pretty hypocritical, but look at Biden's hands. He said masks, and his mostly unconscious brain, when it's 1 word per second, kind of thinking, oh, I probably have mask in my pocket, so I need to check. I don't have pocket shirt, but yeah. And he just checks for a mask for no apparent reason when he's saying, I don't need masks. So his brain is just, from its few thoughts, are hardwired to mask. I need to check my pocket for one and put it on.
Because you can't build a wall high enough to keep out a vaccine. The vaccine can stop the spread of these diseases.
Come on, find the teleprompter, Joe. You can do it. It seems he's located a small child in the audience. He's going on autopilot. And there's the kicker. Another time he said that the vaccine stops transmission, and that's just untrue. I don't like this way that I'm doing it. Come on, you can do it. You can do it, Joe. Find the teleprompter. You can locate it. You can do it. You can do it. It seems he's located a small child in the audience. He's gone on autopilot. And there's the kicker. Another time he said that the vaccine stops transmission, and that is just plainly untrue. It stops hospitalization for certain Americans, not all of them, but certain Americans, and it does not stop transmission by a long shot.
We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police. It's to fund the police.
Now, I of course agree with this. I've been thinking this for the past years as people are saying defund the police. It's a stupid plan. I don't know how this can be accepted after the years of Democrats shouting how racist police officers are and how they need to be defunded. I don't know how anyone on the left is going to actually support that without people criticizing them. And people are. There are people on the left criticizing Biden's messaging here because he's just shifting randomly. Most of the people who were standing up and clapping at that address were these same people who were doing the exact same thing for people who were saying the exact opposite thing. They only shift their policies and their reaction to said policies when it's good for them. If there was some shift or some admission from Biden like, oh yeah, we tried to defund the police, but that went horribly wrong and crime rates shot through the roof, I'd be okay with it. And I'm still okay with funding the police, but I'm not okay with the way Biden's doing it. I'm all for funding the police, again, but we need to get some honesty out of this administration, bottom line.
I asked Congress to pass proven measures to reduce gun violence. Pass universal background checks. Why should anyone on the terrorist list be able to purchase a weapon? Why? Why?
I was expecting the violations of our Second Amendment rights. First come these quote-unquote security measures, and then come some state just outlawing firearms altogether in the name of security. Which, although that doesn't make sense because the firearms are used for security, doesn't make any sense. This is a very slippery slope. It's a steep, slippery slope. I don't have any other. And we don't want to start falling down. Anyway, what proven measures to reduce gun violence are you talking about? Are you talking about restricting guns so that people will be less violent? Or supposedly less violent? Because the words restricting guns, that's when you start violating the Second Amendment. How will he do this? As to background checks, they're already a thing. I know this for a fact, that you have to pass a background check in order to buy any firearm. You can't pass the same law twice, and they're trying to do this with lynching, is to make a lynching illegal again, which seems very redundant, and it is. It's very redundant. And I don't know how they're actually going to get this done. What happens when something's illegal twice? Are you going to punish people or are you going to make people get two background checks where they just run the same thing and it just takes twice as long? But also, with the point of he suggests restricting magazine capacity, talking about deer wearing bulletproof vests, but he's missing the entire point of a high-capacity mag. If you had to use your firearm for self-defense, you want as many shots as you possibly can get. After this, he called on the Senate to let everyone vote. Anyone vote, even if they are a legal citizen of the United States. So potentially the millions of people he's letting in through our border can just vote for, hopefully for him, more Democrats.
As I did 4 days ago, I've nominated the Circuit Court of Appeals, Ketanji Brown Jackson, one of our nation's top legal minds, who will continue in Justice Breyer's legacy of excellence. A former top litigator in private practice, a former federal public defender, from a family of public school educators and police officers. She's a consensus builder.
To be a Supreme Court justice, literally no one cares about your family's credibility or your lived experience. All you need to be able to do is interpret the law and read it all the way through and interpret it like it's written and then write an opinion. To appoint this justice, Biden only considered black women as candidates, which leads me to believe that maybe we didn't get the best one for the job, not because they're black or female, but because he excluded the majority of the candidates. He, before even looking at anybody, narrowed it down to this very small minority, so we didn't consider all of these options. And I'm getting tired of hearing him speak, so let's just kind of skip ahead to a few of his final points here.
Second, let's take on mental health, especially among our children whose lives and education have been turned upside down.
I don't know if you can talk about mental health, Mr. President. And he said earlier in the speech, and I quote, "I have ordered more pills than anyone else in the world," end quote. The one thing he forgot to mention was that it was for his personal use. And seeing as you're one step away from being a complete potato, you cannot talk about preventing and treating mental problems since Biden clearly did not try to prevent them on himself. But again, let's go to some comedic relief. Let's laugh at Pelosi a few times.
Veterans are the backbone and the spine of this country.
Whoa there, Pelosi. Calm down. And for those of you who can't see, she stood up and tried to sit down and then stand up again, and she had to brace herself and stop. It would be both sad and absolutely hilarious if she fell and hit her face directly on that glass thing there. And here we go again.
From burn pits. Many of you have been there. I've been in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan over 40 times.
So for those of you who can't see, Pelosi has both hands clenched in fists and is rubbing them together, repeatedly. So we've got a few options. Squirrel on drugs, drunk fly, evil maniac, which is the most likely option, or she really loves burn pits.
Let's end cancer as we know it.
Ah yes, just end cancer completely. We couldn't end COVID, but we probably can end cancer, a disease we've been working on for longer. And this is specifically targeting those who are pro-cancer and trying to get them to change their evil, naughty ways, because not everybody's going to be on board with it, trying to end cancer. I don't even know. Hasn't that been our solution for a while, is to try and end cancer? It's not like he's doing anything new here. And finally, to the conclusion of the State of the Union.
The State of the Union is strong because you, the American people, are strong. We are stronger today. We are stronger today than we were a year ago. And we'll be stronger a year from now than we are today. This is our moment to meet and overcome the challenges of our time, and we will.
Okay, let me do that last part, but more accurate. And this is only the last minute, 30 seconds maybe, and the actual State of the Union, as it really is. He spent an hour talking about things that don't matter or are just plainly untrue, and then added a minute of what the State of the Union actually is. I'll do it in his randomly angry, yelling at clouds voice, because that's what he does it in, always. The State of the Union is weak because I, as an American president, am weak. We are weaker today than we were a year ago, and we probably will be weaker a year from now than we are today. And then we get to the final line of his speech.
Go get him!
Who's him? Is it really him? What's the preferred pronoun of this being? Who are we supposed to get, and what are we supposed to do with him? I don't know. It's just such a stereotypical, go get him. Why would you end that? Why would you put that as the end of your formal State of the Union? And that is going to conclude this episode of Right Side of the Road. I know it was longer, but I wanted to cover as much of the State of the Union address as I could. I didn't want you to believe any word he said. Thank you so much for listening if you've managed to make it this far. I'll see you all next week, and hopefully over the course of a couple weeks, I'll have more episodes or many things about Ukraine. Farewell.